For more than a decade, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now.
The latest, biggest game of the season starts in 4 hours' time. You're at the right place to get you ready for that. Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. With Dave Minuk, with Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here for the next couple of hours, getting you set for this weekend's Winnipeg Jets contest, the huge matchup today in Nashville against the Predators. The Predators, of course, nipping at the heels of the Winnipeg Jets, 4 points behind the Jets for the final playoff spot in the Western Conference. The Predators with 3 games in hand. And then, of course, the Jets quickly leave Nashville and head to St. Louis to meet the Blues tomorrow evening as well. A big weekend in store, a big weekend of Illegal Curve shows in store for you as well. I say good morning to Dave. I say good morning to Ezra.
Good morning, Andrew.
It's good to see you both on this Saturday, the 18th of March. How are you? How are things in your world, Mr. Ginsburg?
I think thanks for going to me first. I wasn't sure if you were just going to. Sometimes Drew just throws it to both of us, Dave, and then I'm the communications coordinator for Team Minuk and Team Ginsburg. But yeah, I think we're doing pretty well. Recovered W wrestling on Wednesday. I hope that you recovered from Cocaine Bear on Wednesday as well, Drew, because I heard that it's a little bit longer maybe than some people thought. I honestly thought that movie would be like 50 minutes, but isn't it like an hour and a half?
It's an hour and a half. I got to tell you, and I say this with complete sincerity, it's a great movie. If you know what you're going in to expect, if you know that you're going to see a movie that's campy and it's not at all serious, and you're in the right mind frame. Elizabeth Banks, who's I think the director of the movie, does a great job. You will not be disappointed if you go and see Cocaine Bear. And I say that with complete and total sincerity. It was a great movie. My wife and I went. We had a great time. We, didn't expect much, but we were pleasantly surprised by the storyline, and everything about it was so well done. So, Mindell gives it 2 thumbs up for Cocaine Bear.
So basically it's like Raging Bull, Casablanca, and then Cocaine Bear. Is that how you would kind of rate the greatest movies of all time?
I would put Cocaine Bear probably a little bit higher on the list. But, as somebody, my new sort of policy since the pandemic has been, I don't like watching things, no matter how well they're done, that leave me feeling shitty. There's some movies or some TV shows that are, the writing is tremendous, or the cinematography is beautiful, or whatever, the acting is out of this world, but it might leave you feeling crummy at the end. I don't want to watch something that leaves me feeling crummy no matter how well it's done. This is one that I laughed, I enjoyed myself, and I felt great leaving the theater. So in the Mindell scale of things that make me feel good about watching, Cocaine Bear is high on that list.
Yeah, I felt really good after watching Murder with the Murdochs. I definitely felt really good about myself and everything like that. Obviously, I'm joking. That was an absolutely horrible situation with a horrible family, pretty much. But yeah, I'll be honest. I want to see Cocaine Bear. But yeah, let's get into the Jets here, because I can tell Dave M, his head might be on fire, but I think he wants to get into the Jets talk here. As you mentioned, boys, just getting back to the Jets talk, this game coming up this afternoon is huge, but these next 2 games, I think, are absolutely huge. And it goes back to what we were talking about for the last week or so. The Jets control their own destiny. And I realize, on illegalcurve.com, Dave, we've been posting, a lot of content talking about the Jets and Predators race. I'm more concerned about the Flames. And they just beat the Golden Knights 7-2. And we were joking about it on the post-game show on Thursday night.
Yeah.
This was going to be an overtime game or 1-goal game, because that's all the Flames do, right? Night after night, that's just what they do. They're in 1-goal games, right? So I'm more worried about the Flames, but I'm not even worried about strength of schedule and everything about that, boys. Like, the Jets have to win their games. They have to win these 2 games. Forget about whether you think Nashville or Calgary has a better chance. I still personally think the Jets will make the playoffs. Like, I think they have some work to do, but they have to take care of business this weekend, Dave, against 2 teams that they should definitely beat.
Well, you're not going to not get up for tonight's game. I mean, it's going to feel playoffy, and obviously the Jets in Nashville have a long history going back to the 17-18 season when that they played that monumental 7-game series, and I mean it's created quite a rivalry. And even though Nashville fell off and they became sellers at the trade deadline this year, of course, as Ezzy and I talked about, I think it was the post game show.
Did you see Tanner Jeannot's knockout last night? By the way, Dave,
I did not. I was busy. Speaking of movies, I was busy watching
tough. He can score goals, but I forget who it was. They were playing Buffalo, I believe, yesterday, right?
Yeah. I was watching I was busy watching The Dictator, so I didn't have a chance to.
Okay. Yeah.
That sounds like a nice, uplifting, fun movie that I would enjoy.
Well, how could you not? It's Sacha Baron Cohen. It's hilarious.
Exactly.
Anyways, no, the point is that, Nashville, they've, in theory, everybody, that's the funny thing, right? Oh, they sold off all their assets. Well, again, you got a lot of guys who are hungry, a lot of guys who want to earn their jobs either with Nashville or with another team next year. So you get guys who have heart. And what did the Jets have success with when they had 7 injuries and had to make all those recalls from the Moose? You had a lot of guys with heart come into the lineup. And I mean, we saw it with the Jets. The Jets were winning. Well, Nashville, and again, you need 2 things because, it's all well and good to have guys who have heart and maybe not as much talent. You also need a good goaltender. Nashville has a good goaltender, and they have guys who are playing, like I said, guys who want to earn their spots. And that to me is what you're seeing from this Nashville team who, even though they lost to Chicago on the other day, the fact of the matter is that they are 6-3-1 in their last 10 games. And that's allowed them to creep within striking distance of Winnipeg. So yeah, if you're the Jets, you need to put them out of their misery today. You need to, and you need it for your own psyche. You need to beat these guys. Like, you need to have a significant win. This isn't like a 2-1, 3-2 game. I mean, it could be, of course, but I'm saying that, for your own perspective, I think you need to handle Nashville, and you need Connor Hellebuyck to be Connor Hellebuyck. And we don't know, someone in the chat, and I'll just tell you what we know. They asked about Pierre-Luc Dubois. Pierre-Luc Dubois is a game time decision. He is on the trip. He did take the skate with the team. He was the second line center or first line center. Again, that doesn't really matter. But the point is, he did take the line rushes, alongside Blake Wheeler. So there is an expectation he's going to play. But, he did that as well on Thursday, and we didn't, of course, see him. But what Rick Bowness said was he wasn't a game time decision on Thursday. Rick Bowness, right after the morning skate, said he's not playing tonight. So we'll see. I mean, that is a classic Rick Bowness. We'll see as to the status of Pierre-Luc Dubois, but he is integral. And he did say, and I've got his quote on the website, illegalcurve.com, but Rick Bowness basically said, we'll leave it up to him. But he was asked by Kelly Moore of CJOB whether, if this was a playoff game, which it kind of is, would Pierre-Luc Dubois be playing? And he said, probably, or something.
Well, here's the exact quote while you mentioned it. Courtesy of, well, I'm reading it I got it off of illegalcurve.com. I found the quote a little bit interesting, and let me just read it first. As long as he's close and feels he can help the team, then he'll play, Bowness said. If he feels he's 100% or close enough that he cannot only play the game, but finish the game and make a contribution, then we'll certainly let him play. That call is going to be made by him, not by us. That last line, I don't know, just piqued my interest a little bit. And I'm not saying that there's anything else here that's sinister or anything, but I just found that last line.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, yeah, exactly. Law and Order theme song, boom, boom. But the last sentence in that quote just sort of raised my eyebrows a little bit. Now, I don't know if I'm reading more into it than there's actually is there, but I found that last line to be just a little bit odd, given all the sentences before it. And that just could very well be me.
Well, they need Dubois regardless, right? Like, they need Dubois back. And you're right, Drew. You want to talk about mysterious, like the Sam Gagner situation was also mysterious because we thought he was just a healthy scratch.
Sure,
like, we had no idea. And I'm not saying there's a conspiracy.
Double hip surgery all of a sudden.
Well, exactly. That's the thing. Like, nobody, when it was announced, when Dave posted it on illegalcurve.com and it said Gagner out for the season, I was like, I didn't know he was injured. Yeah. Like, I thought he might be banged up a little bit, but I don't think anybody thought he was going to be done for the season. And obviously, Gagner is your 13th, 14th forward. But still, I mean, he's a guy that, I think would come in handy down the stretch, to be honest. I also think, we should talk about Axel Jonsson-Fjällby again, because, he had a goal and an assist against Edmonton. I forget if that was in Winnipeg or in Edmonton. But, I could see him going in for one of these games. But again, getting back to Dubois, like, you want him up the middle. And the thing with the Nashville Predators is, I think 4 of their last 5 games, they've scored 2 goals or less. Like, I know they beat the Ducks 5-4 in overtime. But this Predators team, like, yeah, you've still got Roman Josi, you've still got Matt Duchene, you've still got Philip Forsberg. I think all of those guys are healthy still. But after that, I mean, Tommy Novak is a guy, Dave, who's on fire lately. I think he's got 5 or 6 points in his last 3 games. But this Predators team is completely depleted, right? Like,
yeah,
we went over all the names of the guys that have been shipped out, right? So they're still a really good defensive team, though. But if the Jets are able to score a couple of goals early in the first period, I mean, that there's a really good chance they're going to win, because this Predators team just doesn't have a lot when it comes to goal scoring right now. So I think the Jets are going to win this game. I think they're going to win against St. Louis. And look, they came up big last time they had a back-to-back situation, and they needed to win games, and we didn't think they were going to win those games, right? So regardless of Dubois in the lineup, or regardless if there's any personnel changes for these 2 games, they got to win these. Like, we joked on illegalcurve.com that, it was the second, biggest game of the year, or the next biggest game of the year. But the fact is that you lost your last 2 games and you have to pick up 4 points. Nothing but 4 points to me is acceptable here. Even 3 points isn't going to cut it.
Well, and you talk about Nashville, Ezzy, and so to your point about their goal scoring struggles, 1 goal against Arizona, 2 goals against the Kings, but one of those came in a shootout, so that doesn't come.
Right.
It doesn't count. They exploded for 5 goals against the Ducks, 2 goals against the Red Wings, 1 goal against the Blackhawks. So goal scoring has been hard for them to come by, but it's also been hard for the Jets to come by. But the Jets also have to, they haven't played poorly. The results haven't been great this week. Obviously the results last weekend were good, but Tuesday they didn't play poorly, but self-inflicted errors. They didn't play poorly against Boston. Boston's just, Boston just is such a juggernaut, and it's so difficult to beat Boston. And
it really is.
It really is. Like, everything.
They make so few mistakes.
Yeah.
They played really well. And it's funny because, a lot of fans, and sometimes we joke about, like, going back to when Paul Maurice would say, we had one of our best games of the year, but they lost. I don't know if I would say that it was one of the best games of the year, or, their effort was A+ or anything like that, but they had a lot of chances, like Kyle Connor specifically. And, was unbelievable, right? So I agree with you. I mean, they played really well against the Bruins. They played really well against the Hurricanes. If they play anything close to that, they should beat both of these teams, because these teams aren't very good.
They to your point, look at the schedule. I mean, as more than just this weekend. This is the next, from here till the end of the March, the next 7 games. 6 of those 7 are against non-playoff teams, Dave. I mean, these are the games that this is the run the Jets need to go on. The schedule gets a little bit harder in April. It doesn't get impossible. I mean, but if you want to affirm yourself as a playoff team, which is something that the Jets are still a playoff team, and were comfortably in a playoff spot, until the calendar flipped to 2023, and the results have now been pretty middling. The schedule right now, the next 7 games, there's no reason why you shouldn't win at least 6 of those 7. You should get 12 out of your next 14 points at a minimum if you're playing the right way, because you have more talent than your opponents for the rest of the month. Against Nashville, you're more talented. St. Louis, you're more talented. Arizona, Anaheim, the Kings, fine. The Kings,
Arizona's unpredictable. That's the thing. We were talking about that on Thursday night. You're 100% right. Arizona's bad, but it's like, it's almost like because they're so bad, like, they catch teams by surprise, and they've been winning games lately. But you're right, Drew. I mean, all
the
these
Jets
teams
can't underestimate anybody, though. I mean, they're not in a position, Dave, where they can underestimate anyone. And the schedule isn't difficult. You got to. I mean, besides this weekend, there's no back-to-backs. There's no back-to-backs on the California road trip, which is rare. You got to, you have time to bank, 12 out of 14 points, 13 out of 14 points. You just have to play the right way. And I'm not that confident that this Jets team, despite showing signs of playing the right way, truly knows how to play the right way against lower competition.
Well, I mean, I think they've been good. They've possessed the puck a lot. It's not as if they're having these terrible
Right.
stretches of games. Like again, if you look at most of these hockey games, they've been good. You were right, Drew. They've had some mistakes that have ended up in the back of their net, and they are going to have to tighten that up. But I think that if they play these types of games against the Nashvilles, against the St. Louis's, more often than not, they're going to win those hockey games. Now, look, puck luck is not in the Jets' favor right now. I joke that Kyle Connor may want to start sacrificing chickens in order to break whatever
major league style.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever curse is currently afflicting him. But
Or you can start like I have like a little Drew doll at home and I just poke it with needles.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think why I have that acupuncture feeling without getting acupuncture.
But you need your big dogs to be your big dogs, and your role players to continue to do that. And you're going to need guys. You're going to need Nikolai Ehlers to score. You're going to need Kyle Connor to score.
Wow.
You're going to need Mark Scheifele to score. I mean, ultimately, like these guys are going to have to take the bull by the horns. And look, again, I'm not pillaring them because they've been playing for the most part pretty good hockey. They just aren't getting those bounces. And again, sometimes the goaltenders make the saves, and they have excellent games. And after the game, Jim Montgomery said that was Jeremy Swayman's game of the year against the Jets. And we know James Reimer had his game of the year against the Jets. I mean, I know folks hate to say, that happens, but how many times has Connor Hellebuck played the game of his life and the Jets have escaped from games that they don't deserve to win? It happens in hockey. It's just the reality. So look, the strength of schedule is definitely in the Jets' favor. Ezzy and I talked about that after the post-game show, with Boston, that the Jets have the 7th easiest, strength of schedule, I believe, left. And Nashville has like the second hardest. Calgary, I think, has like second or third easiest. But
Calgary's
the fact that
it's pretty easy.
That's why I'm more worried about Calgary. But like I said, guys, like if you take away the strength of schedule and just, look at the games remaining and the teams, maybe it's just me, but like the Flames scare me a lot more. But I do think the Jets will hang on. I mean, it's obviously nobody knows at this point. That's the thing. Like we can all come up with our own kind of, we could pick like how many points we think the Jets are going to get, or the Flames are going to get, or the Predators are going to get. But just with Kadri and Huberdeau and all these Lindholm, like they've just got way more talent on their team than the Predators do. But you're right. I mean, they still have to win these games, and if you lose today, and again, I think the Jets will win. I think they'll respond because I like the way they're playing. But then all of a sudden, the Predators are a little bit closer than you'd like, right? And they have the games in hand. The Flames are only 3 points back. So this game really is critical. I mean, forget the biggest game of the year nonsense. They just have to win, period.
Well, look, you talk about the standings and everything else. Nashville's 4 points behind the Jets. They have those 3 games in hand. If the Jets can get the victory, a clean victory by a clean 2 points, then Nashville still has the 3 games in hand. But they go to play the Rangers tomorrow night. So their schedule, like you said, is not easy. Calgary has Dallas tonight. Not easy. I mean, Dallas, and that's at home. And Calgary's been, the Jets of the Calgary's been so woefully inconsistent. They go into Los
all year long, Drew.
Like Drew, they actually.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, Dave, like they've been doing this all year long. So that's the thing too that I think is in the Jets' favor is it's not like the Flames are on a heater or they were on a heater a couple of weeks ago. They're the postcard of inconsistent.
Ezzy, I was just going to say they're consistently inconsistent, and the irony was that folks in Calgary were pleased as punch that their team had won 2 games in a row. So it was like the first time that had happened in like 6 weeks or something like that, maybe more, when they won 2 games in a row last week. And then of course, it's just I like Brass Bonanza's assessment there. It's a snail's race to the 8th place, and it's not.
They've got the Kings and the Golden Knights. Like they just played the Golden Knights. They've got the Kings and the Golden Knights coming up. So the Flames' easier part of their schedule isn't going to come until kind of like later next week.
Which is why if you're Winnipeg and you can have a clean sweep this weekend,
right?
And we have to focus on one game at a time.
Right. You give yourself breathing room, right?
You
Dave?
give yourself and
breathe.
Well, you give yourself breathing room, but you also give yourself that confidence to know, hey, you know what? We've given we're feeling good. Calgary's nervous; they're holding their sticks a little tighter, and we've given ourselves that buffer. And that to me is the key for the Jets.
To your point, if the Jets get a clean sweep this weekend, and they should. I mean, that's not
careful, Drew. If Jordan Binnington wasn't suspended, those would be considered fighting words with
that's
him.
fine. Everything is a fighting word to that lunatic.
Well, I agree with Drew. I'm completely. I was never the biggest Binnington fan.
No,
I mean, what he did in 2000, exactly. What he did in 2019 when the Blues won the Stanley Cup was incredible. That was like JS Jaguar type of stuff, right?
He's a distraction in that dressing room.
But the funniest thing is Marc-Andre Fleury. I don't know if you guys saw, he was mic'd up.
Yeah, it was very
Did you
funny.
guys see that
Yeah.
or hear that? I guess, but he was mic'd up, and the thing is, like, Marc
It'll be
Andre Fleury
good.
was like,
It'll be
okay,
good.
this guy, this idiot wants to fight a
Yeah.
goalie. I'll fight him. He can fight me, Mr. Hall of Famer, the Flower, right? But it was funny that after he got kicked out of the game, then he started pumping the crowd up. It's like you're pumping your home crowd up, but you just took a penalty,
Well,
and
did
now
you
your
not-
team's like, it was just so weird. He's a little bit unhinged.
What did he compared himself to Matt Damon's character in Good Will Hunting. After getting suspended. I'm like, what are you talking
Good Will
about?
Hunting. What is that, from 1992?
I mean, not quite that old, but probably 19. Is it 98, 99? I'm not 100%.
I wish I had Google or something that I could
Yeah,
check. Maybe
Google
IMDb, Dave. I wish I had an internet connection that I could check that particular factoid.
Here,
I'm gonna look it up right now.
1998 is when Good Will Hunting.
Okay,
came
well, I
out.
was off
So,
by
I mean,
6 years, Drew.
But
Look,
Drew was right.
He's definitely a unique character, and I mean, hockey needs more unique characters, but he's also detrimental to his team's success. Now the Blues
Well,
aren't
it's
going
become
anywhere.
a bit of a joke. That's the thing with Binnington, right? I think Binnington's a really talented goalie. Like, it's been well documented that he's had his ups and downs, Dave.
Yeah.
But it's just like you're on a non-playoff team.
Yeah,
He's just doing stupid stuff out there.
I would agree exactly. But my point is, going back before we got waylaid like we so often do on this fine program, is that if the Jets take care of business this weekend, and they should, they could potentially be 7 points up on the Flames.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, in a 7-point buffer, and yes, Calgary would still have a game in hand, and yes, this presumes that Calgary loses to Dallas tonight, which of course you can't assume that's going to happen, but for argument's sake, let's do it. A 7-point lead is not a small lead. That is it should be a significant buffer in this league where it's so hard to really put any distance or gain any ground on teams that you're trying to chase.
Well, you could probably go, if you win these next two games, you could probably even go like a game or two below 500 and still make the playoffs. That's pretty much what it does. It doesn't guarantee that you make the playoffs, but it goes a long way to ensuring that you hold that last wild card spot, right? So that's why I said you got to get 4 points here, right? And that's obvious. It's not like the Jets are going into these games saying like, oh, like we want to beat Nashville, but if we get a point against if we get a 3 points out of 4, against St. Louis, we only get 1. Obviously, they want the 4 points, but they have to do it. And look at these guys have pride on the Blues and the Predators. They like the Blues especially know they're not going to make the playoffs.
The Predators aren't playing for more than pride; they're playing for their playoff lives.
Well, sure, but what I'm saying is that you're not. It's not going to be easy here, and we can assume UC Saros is going to play against the Jets. I mean, that's the goaltender that you expect to be in there, and it's been well. I mean, we've all watched how Saros has played the Jets over the years. He's a top 5 goalie in the league. It's not going to be easy, but just based on the talent on this roster and the lack of talent on the Predators roster, this should be an easy win. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say easy win. I should say it should be a win for the Jets, and they're going to go a long way if they get these 4 points in securing a playoff spot.
Look, it starts with Kyle Connor, 2 goals in his last 14 games.
Yep. Ehlers has got to be better. Drew, he wasn't good against Boston.
Ehlers 3 goals in his last 14 games. Blake Wheeler 0 goals in his last 14 games. I mean, these are not sustainable numbers. These are not acceptable numbers from your best players. And I'm even, Mark Scheifele should have more than 6 goals in his last 14 games. So I mean, he's got 12 assists, or he's got 6 assists also. So at least he's getting close to that point the game.
Well, he's also on pace for like 45 goals. So right. Scheifele, I'm not as much as worried about, but you're right. Ehlers, Connor, Wheeler. I mean, Dubois would provide a nice boost. Yeah. What do we think about Axel Jonsson-Fjällby maybe going in? I'm not just reading the chat here. You guys know that it seems like, when the bottom 6 isn't providing a lot of offense, which, we got to give credit to Morgan Barron. He's been good. Mason Appleton's been good. That 4th line, you're not getting a lot of offense, Dave. I wonder if AJF goes in.
Well, the only thing I was going to say is that, I mean, it's possible, but you know what? You need those guys. I mean, realistically, just looking at it, though, he had Ehlers, Scheifele, Niederreiter, Connor Dubois, Wheeler, Nemesnikov, Lowry, Appleton, and Barron, Stenlund, and Menelainen. So it looks like Jonsson-Fjällby is going to remain out, as will David Gustafsson. But you know what I was going to say is that even if those guys aren't scoring, even if Kyle Connor isn't scoring, even if Nikolai Ehlers isn't scoring, you know what they need to do? Not become defensive liabilities like they've been. So Nikolai Ehlers casually, giving that puck up, which ends up in the back of the net on the Pavel Zacha goal, or Kyle Connor flying the zone which led to, was that the first goal by, which game was that, Ezzy? When
That might have been the Carolina game.
That was the Carolina game.
Yeah, that's right. So the point is, it's one thing if you're not scoring goals in 14 games, but you're also leading directly to goals against your team in these games. And that is as big a killer when your team isn't scoring as
that was if I'm not mistaken, that was the Jacob Slavin goal.
Yeah,
Yes.
It was. So the point is that you just got to be more careful. And, the other thing with Kyle Connor is he's got to be more disciplined. I mean, it's crazy how many penalties he's taken. And I understand there's frustration. I understand all of that element, but like, you've got to be more disciplined because you can't afford, even though you have a good penalty kill, you don't need to put your guys in the box and kill time and again, removing the offensive opportunities for your team.
5-on-5 against the Preds. That's how you beat them. 5-on-5 because you have more talent. If it all of a sudden becomes a special teams contest, well, that advantage you have in talent gets neutralized. 5-on-5 tonight, 5-on-5 against St. Louis, 5-on-5 over the next, the rest of the month. You have more talent than the teams you're playing against. You demonstrate that at 5-on-5. That's how you should win, because the power play hasn't really been clicking that well for the Jets lately. And once you're onto the penalty kill, if you're going to be penalty killing for a significant period of time, strange things happen when the other team can get have a power play.
We've got the comment up from T. Conapoli here. He's absolutely right. You can't take a lot of penalties. You want to control the puck a lot better. Just don't have those unforced turnovers. That's what we've seen. There's a difference between taking a penalty to prevent a goal or, if it's a strong forecheck, something like that. But just reduce these kind of glaring turnovers. And also a lot of people earlier in the show were mentioning the starts. They're absolutely right. Like we saw it last game against the Bruins. It was a Trent Frederick, right, that got the first goal. We saw it a couple of weeks ago against the Avalanche when Nathan McKinnon scored somehow like half of a second into the game. Obviously, I'm joking, but yeah, you got to have better starts. And like I said earlier, the Predators are not going to score a lot of goals. They just don't. There's not enough talent on this team. Right. So if you're able to put a couple goals past Saros, which is not easy, I think that's going to go a long way into winning this game.
The puck drop is in 3.5 hours. The Illegal Curve post-game show right around 3:45 or so this afternoon following the Jets and the Preds. Meet us back here on our YouTube channel for all of your post-game chatter. When we come back, Jason Bell of the Winnipeg Free Press joins us. He's the sports editor. He covers the Jets as well. We'll talk to Jay about everything going on with the Jets. Much more to come. It's a Saturday morning. You're live with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show on YouTube and all of our social media platform. Bottom of hour number 1, we welcome you back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. For more discussions and analysis about the Winnipeg Jets, we're pleased to welcome to the program Marty Bird, along with his
Unbelievable.
With his human handler Jason Bell of the Winnipeg Free Press.
My wife.
What's going on, Jay?
Well, initially I was going to refuse to speak today because I've been benched the last few weeks, and I was pissed off. I didn't want to talk to you guys, but I've decided today I can come out and talk to you.
That's good.
Well, the thing is, Hammer doesn't cost us as much money. That was the thing, right? So that's why we had Hammer on last week. We had to refill the bank account.
And the other thing, I came in with a goal. I do not want to leave Drew feeling crummy, so I got a lot of pressure on myself on this.
That's okay. I have a very thick skin, unlike some of the members of the Winnipeg Jets who. I mean, I know you're tongue in cheek referencing Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor and their comments after refusing the opportunity to comment. It seems like this team, Jay, almost gets in their own way, especially the guys who are ostensibly leaders on this team. I mean, you come out, you talk after that incident, and it's done with. And instead, they turned a post-game blurb into a few days worth of conversation. It's almost PR 101, but it's apparently a class that they failed miserably in just letting this smolder into something more than what it could have been had they just come out and say what Nito Niederreiter said. We weren't good enough. We deserve to get benched. We'll be better tomorrow. Done. Instead,
maybe it's brilliant PR, because then they don't have to actually talk about the hockey game. They can talk about something else and how terrible they've been lately. After today, let's get back to hockey. And after today, you guys talk about today a must win. Obviously, they have to win today. And if they crap the bed, there's going to be absolutely no time for us to really analyze that one because they're back on the ice tomorrow. So it's going to be one of these, we got to flush that one and get back on the ice. So expect to hear some of that today if these guys don't go into Nashville and win. But I'm like, I expect them to win today.
Well, I mean, it just seems like, at some point in time, the talent disparity should win out. So then if it doesn't, then it becomes a question of effort and a question of desire and a question of want. And you hate to criticize anyone's desire and everything else, but it's the execution needs to be there. And they've played decently this week. They played decently against Carolina if it wasn't for the self-inflicted errors. They played pretty well against Boston, but Boston, you give Boston an inch and they kick the door in and they end up with a victory. I guess looking back at the last, let's say, since last weekend games where they swept in Florida, do you get the sense that maybe this team is starting to break through a little bit and maybe start heading up on an upward trajectory? Or do you think that they're just going to be the consistently inconsistent team we've seen since the calendar turned to 2023?
Well, the wisest thing that's been said in the last 2 weeks, guys, is what Adam Lowry said, is that they're the hollow victories. That doesn't mean anything, right? Mm-hmm. How many times do we say, if they play like this tonight, or they say we should win most games? Well, they've proven that actually doesn't happen. Because they can go and lose, in so many different shapes and sizes that it's Jet fans would be pulling their hair out. We can easily say that 2 wins this weekend would go a long way to really solidifying things because, as you suggested, Calgary's got they've got Dallas tonight, and I think they play. I'm looking over on my shoulder here. They got LA coming up on Monday. Yeah. You could do some damage to Nashville by beating them, obviously, in their own barn today, and then take care of St. Louis tomorrow. St. Louis won the other night, which is surprising. Look at that roster. But this is not the same Nashville team that used to give the Jets fits and starts. You know that, eh? So you said Philip Forsberg didn't play the other night, so I don't know if he's probably a question mark today. There's no Arvidsson, there's no Ekholm, there's no Ellis, there's no Subban. Of course, there's no Pekka Rinne anymore. This is a shell of their former selves. Again, there should be no excuses for this team to not win today going away. But they've proven that just doesn't mean anything. What you expect of this team doesn't always come to fruition. So.
This is the Tommy Novak, Luke Evangelista, Phil Tomasino Predators.
Evan Gravel.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pretty sure it's either called the Milwaukee Admirals.
Yeah, this is the Tyson Barrie era in Nashville right now. But I agree with you 100%, Jay. Like if the Jets play, this is what I kind of said right before you came on. If they play anywhere close to the way, and you're right. You play really well, like the process and everything like that. And it's true, but you don't get the results. And that's what's unfortunate because all you want right now is the results. Like the Flames shouldn't be 3 points behind the Jets. Like the Jets should have more of a cushion, but it's because they've been a 500 team the last 2.5 months, right? I wanted to ask you about Connor Hellebuyck because I think you would agree that Hellebuyck will probably get both of these starts. There's a chance, Riddick plays. Riddick obviously has struggled big time. And, we don't have to go over that. But as far as you're concerned, is the key to this team not still Hellebuyck? Like, yes, I realize that Kyle Connor, Nick Ehlers, Blake Wheeler, they're not scoring goals. PLD's health, you hope that he plays both of these games. But if the Jets get into the playoffs and are able to beat someone, to me, Hellebuyck is the key. And that's why Elliot Friedman mentioned this the other day, saying that, no other goaltender in the NHL is more important to their team than Connor Hellebuyck. And I don't think
that Connor Hellebuyck is the main reason why the Jets get into the playoffs over the next 13 games, though. You can expect that he's going to play okay. Maybe when you get up against a Vegas or an LA or Minnesota or whoever they might play in that first round.
Sorry, Jay, that question was actually for Marty Bird.
Well, he just did something on my back, so that's what he thought about your question.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's how Birds tell you that they don't like that question.
They should be able to win a lot of these games coming up with an even average Connor Hellebuyck, because again, the level of competition, which again shouldn't mean anything because the Jets have played basically 500 hockey for a long time, but what they need is their best players to play like their best players. Mm-hmm. And of course, you guys have pointed this out numerous times. Kyle Connor has been like AWOL, and Ehlers has been, AWOL. And Blake Wheeler has really regressed, unfortunately. We're watching it right in front of our own eyes, and maybe he's just, out of sorts and it'll come back. But it's, they need to score some goals, and they should be able to beat these teams. But Connor Hellebuyck can't allow 5. But you would think that any kind of a defensive structure against some of these weaker teams, they wouldn't surrender that many goals. So score a couple, get a couple of goals from your best guys, and you should win some of these hockey games. I don't think if Connor Hellebuyck is going to be this the last line of defense against like some of these weaker then this is a worse team than we thought they are.
Saturday morning, you're watching the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Jason Bell of the Winnipeg Free Press, along with his pet, Marty Bird, are joining us on the program to talk about the Jets ahead of the Jets and the Predators this afternoon, and then the Jets and the Blues tomorrow evening.
My question's for Jay or Marty. Either one can answer, of course. But for either of you boys, question is, what do you think in terms of the, Rick Bowness was talking about not wanting guys to sit too long. Do you think the era of rotation is done on the defense? Do you think Dylan Sandberg has cemented himself? Like, I personally think he should never come out of this lineup again, given what he's been able to do. But Jay, do you think it's safe to say that era is done now, and you're just going to see the guys who should be in the top 6 for the Jets defense?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think what we're going to see, this is as good a defensive core as they can ice. What they have in their organization, this is the 6, right? As long as Josh Morrissey is healthy, and then that creates all kinds of other problems. But Dylan Sandberg still has his warts, Dave. You would know, you've watched him for years, and you've seen his growth and development. I think he does a lot of really good things. And the NHL is not a development league, and the Jets are trying to win right now, but it probably does him. I don't think it does him a great service to be playing behind Logan Stanley at this point. I mean, we know moving forward who's going to be the guy. Do they peg Logan Stanley as a top 4 defenseman? Maybe not, but he's certainly developing into a really solid 5 or 6 for probably a good long while in this organization. So they've got the defensive core they want. I think they want on the ice right now, and you're not going to see a lot of guys moving in and out of there. And quite frankly, in the 12 forward group, I mean, I think Axel Johnson-Fialbi, that would be the only question mark in my mind too. I certainly didn't see Sam Gagner playing anymore, and it's unfortunate that he's gone under the knife. And you would think, we won't see him in a Jet jersey again. And he was. How
surprised were you? Sorry to cut you off during your answer, but how surprised were you? Because it seemed like that came out of nowhere. I don't even know if any of the media.
I think all of us just assumed that he was going to be a healthy scratch for the remainder of the. And he would be a positive influence around the club, and he certainly may be as they make a push. But I didn't see him playing, but I certainly didn't see him requiring surgery. And he will hopefully, hey, we wish him well, and we wish that he makes a full recovery and can still play another year or two. And it won't be here, I can't imagine, but no, that I think again that the 12 that we see playing today are probably the 12 that we're going to see down the stretch, unless they decide to throw in Axel every once in a while. That's the only other player I see coming in and out of the lineup.
Jason, you look at this team, let's for argument's sake say that they do make it into the playoffs. I don't think anybody expects that if they get in there that they're going to be there for long. They just seem to be a step behind the other teams in the Western Conference, certainly in the Dallases and the Colorados. I mean, the Jets just aren't at that level. You disagree with me if you want, that's fine. But, if that's the case, and let's say the season ends relatively quickly, is there any reason to bring back the same group for next year and expect different results?
Well, this is a debate that we could go on all day today. Do you want to spend the whole day on this? Because I don't cover the team on a day-to-day basis anymore, as you gentlemen well know. So I take a bit of a step back. It's been a decade since my fan hat came off. I look at this club like any other club in the NHL. And I see no reason why the general manager is back if this team doesn't make the playoffs. If that would then happen, then obviously a new coaching staff would come in. And I don't necessarily think Scott Arniel just assumes the reign. That's my take on it. And then you make major changes. And I think that Pierre-Luc Dubois, there's been lots of chatter. We don't actually know what the man himself believes, but I think we can safely assume that maybe it would be best if he had found a new address next year. Mark Scheifele, I probably think, and Mark has been a great hockey player for this organization. He's been a member of this team since day one. But a change of scenery is probably best. And then all of a sudden you're talking about your top 2 centers. I mean, that's a big bunch of changes, right?
Mhm.
Does Blake Wheeler, is he back for another season? You're building around, obviously you're building around Josh Morrissey. You're trying to convince your goaltender you're going to throw a lot of money at your goaltender and tell him that we're going in the right direction and hope Connor Hellebuyck can re-up. But I think it could be a very, very interesting summer as far as changes in this organization from top to bottom. That's as much as I have no intel, but I have to assume that if I was running the show and if I was Mark Chipman, I think I'd probably say I've seen enough of this regime and it's time for us to move in a different direction. And I think if I'm reading the room right, my fan base would expect as much.
Yeah, I would agree. I think all of us agree with you, Jay. And I don't know if, Dubois, Scheifele, Wheeler, all of these guys get moved, but I would assume at least one of them or two of them get moved. And I wanted to go back to what you were saying before. Like, let's, we still have 13 games left here, 12 games left here in the regular season with 2 huge games coming up this afternoon. It's almost going to have, like, honestly, the game, I don't want to overhype it because the Predators aren't a very good team, but I mean, this afternoon game should have a playoff feel. Right? Like if the Jets are able to win today and especially, take 4 points and beat St. Louis, like Drew said earlier, that's going to go a long way into making the playoffs. But kind of getting back to.
Well, I would say one other thing, sorry to interrupt you.
Sure,
keep
go
your
ahead.
train of thought there, because if you'll forget your train of thought as fast as I do if we don't remind you again.
I already forgot it, Jay.
I think the best thing that could happen for the Winnipeg Jets right now is that they win about 5-0 and they only allow about 16 shots because they want 37 to play tomorrow, as you suggested. If he faces 41 shots, and I can't see how that roster in Nashville could generate 41 shots. I really don't. And I mean, it's just they're just not there anymore. But because you want him to play back-to-back. And then, I don't know, you've got Arizona. Then that's when you throw David Rittich out to Arizona, and you still expect to beat Arizona. You have to.
Well, but to your point, Jay, about the shots on goal, I mean, he faced a ton of rubber last Friday against the Panthers, and they still brought him back on Saturday against the Lightning. Or maybe
I think you can only go to that well so often, can't you guys? I mean, we talk about rest and recovery, and Connor Hellebuyck doesn't seem to like rest and recovery. They almost have to force it on him. But
he's not a machine. Like at the end of the day, he's a human being.
This is a big weekend, and you're a pro athlete, and I think you will give you Tuesday off. But you have to play back to back, assuming that they don't get shelled. But back to your point, I'm curious.
The question was going to surround, the idea that there could be major changes regardless of how the Jets do in the playoffs, right? Like, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying before. I was talking more about Hellebuyck being the key once the Jets, get into the playoffs. He's obviously Hellebuyck has to play well these next couple of games. But I guess what I was going to say is, don't you think that these guys, like especially, I'm talking about the veterans. I mean, you want the whole team, to be on the same page, but for guys like Scheifele and Wheeler and even, some of the guys, like you mentioned, Scheifele's been around with the Jets so long, they didn't even have a team name yet, right? He put the NHL jersey on in St. Paul, right? But like the veterans of this team, the guys that have been drafted and developed, so you throw Connor in there, you throw Ehlers, you throw Morrissey, Lowry. I mean, shouldn't these guys be rallying around the fact that there could be major changes regardless of what happens in the playoffs?
I don't know how much they think about that stuff right now, guys. They should be thinking about the here and now. I really don't know, but you're a human being and you are thinking about the future. And do they look around the room and say, boy, we want this group together? Or are they looking around the room being realistic and saying, it's been real, but it's time to.
Yeah, I'm sick of this guy.
Well, I don't think they're sick of them, but I think, and also I think a lot of them have to be able to thinking of themselves too. Geez, I don't pay any taxes in this state, and I set myself up against this guy, and I'm making $2 million less than that guy.
Hey, you just have to put it in the Cayman Islands like Illegal Curve does. We have an account in the Cayman Islands.
Go back to what Drew said, and he's talking about, and I thought about this morning. There's no reason for us to believe that the Jets could get past a Dallas or a Vegas or Minnesota in the first round, depending how it all kind of shakes out, right? Or in LA, I guess. Pardon me, LA could be in there too. But there's also. Look at how they played for the first 38 to 40 games of the season, right? When the goal scorers were scoring and they played a structure, and Hellebuyck was like a Vezina winner. And I'm not saying they're going to all of a sudden go to bed, wake up the next morning, and they're going to be back to their former selves. But could they not beat Dallas in a best-of-7 series? Could they not beat LA in a best-of-7 series?
I think they can. I think the one team you want to avoid is Colorado. But I think
exactly.
Absolutely.
But I don't
Dallas is
see us Does anybody see a scenario right now where they play Colorado in the first round?
No, probably not.
No, it'd be unlikely. But look, of course, sorry.
They can end up playing Vegas in the first round.
And I'm not trying to be. This is not homerism. I'm just saying. I'm saying, reality is this. We've seen this club like dominate teams earlier in the season. Can they regain that form? Who knows? But I wouldn't say that if they make the playoffs and they start in Dallas and they go in and steal one in Dallas, that they can't come home and win a couple and all of a sudden they win a series. I mean, these teams aren't. This is not Boston.
I think. Look, sorry. Let me just
we'll go back to the point where we said that the West was wide open. Did it change so dramatically since the
still
trade
wide
deadline?
open?
It's still wide open, but I don't think the Jets right now, I just don't think that they are at the same level as the other teams. That's not to say they can't win a series. They can definitely win a series because Connor Hellebuyck on his own could steal a series. But can they win 2 series? Can they win 3 series? I'm skeptical just because, and yes, they could revert back to the form, the playing as well as they were at the beginning of the season or the first few months. But it's not even been like a short-term blip. It's been like this since the beginning of January now.
It's a trend.
It's been almost 3 months of mediocre to below mediocre hockey. So yes, they could turn it on for a series, but I don't think they can do it for more than one. That would be, to me, surprising. I mean, I think their cap level or their as far as they can go is one round. Yeah. Now maybe that just by the way, and just that one round, however many home games that would translate to, is a huge boon for the business side of the operation.
Sure it is.
So maybe
and the fans,
just happy
the fans, like how the fans, the Jets fans, everybody watching or listening on the podcast, like, do we not want to see a whiteout? And now with True North Square there, like, I mean, the fans deserve this. I mean, the fans are the ones that pay the salaries and buy the merchandise. Like Mike talked about that in his article. And that's why, like, again, I don't want to, beat a dead horse here. It's unacceptable to me. Maybe that's my journalism background. The fact that, we're friends and colleagues with you and Hammer and Mike and all the media. Like, you gotta be accountable, man. Like, you gotta speak to the media, even if you're going to speak in your cliches. When you have a bad game, like Blake Wheeler doesn't have the C anymore. So that's one of Scheifele or Connor had to speak to the media there. Sorry, I just had to get that off my chest.
But I think my Mike, Mike got roasted a little bit by fans who take the attitude, why, oh, poor media, you didn't get to talk to us. Mike, trust me, Mike and I don't, and Jeff and those guys, they don't care if they throw their microphone in front of guys because they've been there, done that, and they don't say anything interesting. The reality is, I think you owe it to your organization and the guys in the room that you step out and take accountability, and you don't throw the new guy.
Yeah, Nino
exactly. Yeah, here you go, Nino. You've only been here 2 weeks. So you answer the questions. And by the way, Mike mentioned this, and he's 100% right. Nino answered that question like a professional adult.
Right? Nino scored in that game.
Well, he scored, but he said we weren't very good. That's all.
He was not the worst player on that line. He got guilty by association, and again, I think Kevin Cheveldayoff took a lot of heat at the trade deadline, but we can all agree that the acquisition of 62 has been a very good move, and he's got term, and he's going to look. I think he just brings a lot into that. He must bring a lot into that room, I have to assume, because he brings an energy on the ice that we haven't seen from a lot of that type of player. Like, who's the last type of player this organization had? I mean, they've had energy guys with no skill, right? They've had. I don't want to knock Mike Easamont because then Dave's going to be mad at me. But Dave won't like that. Lemieux and guys like this. But I'm not saying that Niederreiter's a fighter, but you know what I mean? Like an energy guy that on the ice you think, oh, you're kind of waiting to see what he might do next, right?
Well, a guy who parks himself and does, who always.
Brandon Tanev is a guy that comes to mind.
Can be found in front of the net
with less skill.
Talent. Yeah. Nino Niederreiter's a guy with skill who refuses to rely strictly on that skill and stay on the perimeter. He goes to where he needs to go, and hell hath no fury to get in his way.
And obviously a consummate,
like a Nino Niederreiter scorned.
And he came out, and he came out and spoke. And he's the newest guy in the room.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, Jay, I was just gonna say, like, the truth is, you're right. It's one thing to have an energy guy, but it's another thing with him. He's an energy guy with talent, and so that adds a different element than a lot of the other guys. But and speaking of being where they need to be and adjusting and making all sorts of impacts on the game, the power play. And I know Brad Lauer, his return to the bench He's not on skating, I don't believe. So that's why Eric Dubois remains with the big club. But
Does he go out in his winter boots? I had coaches like that.
no, I haven't been. I went to practice a couple weeks ago. I wasn't there last week, so I don't know if he was on the ice, but I don't believe he is yet. And so, but the power play. I mean, the power play from a team that is talented as this club. You just watch it. And I'm not going to ask you to break it down. But
I'm not a break it down system.
No, and I'm not asking you to break. I'm not asking you to. But do you?
I think it would be cruel. It would be cruel for anybody to break it down, even the coaches. I mean, how much can you break down a power play? That
I just think that we go back to what it's been the same thing, and a new coach hasn't changed things. A new system hasn't changed things. And I know that Nikolai Ehlers is struggling. I get that, but.
He plays 20 seconds of power play. How can you?
That's what I was getting to. Is just the idea that I understand he doesn't want to change his personnel. That's fine. But the idea is like when you watch these power plays and like the Jets have not been scoring on them. They're power play 1. They're using a minute and 45 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying they don't want to change their personnel, Dave. Why not?
Well, no, don't get me wrong. I'm all for making adjustments, but they don't seem to be.
So they can't win the draw. So they're usually working with about 100-second power play. Really, is what they're doing. They can't win the opening faceoff. So now you're okay. So you're basically you may as well just start your power play with Josh Morrissey behind his own net. Like that's how they should start their power plays, right? Just say go like we used to in the old days when we had no referees. You just you get the puck on your side. So they do that, and then they come up the ice and they can't gain the zone, right? There's only one guy that can consistently gain the zone. So why is he not on the first power play? And I know he's struggling, but just change things up. How does it hurt you if you change things up? I don't understand. You do the same. What is it? The definition of the word. The word I don't like. It's just but you just you just do the same stuff, and they're just and they're so static. We know that there's no puck movement and bobbled pucks and incomplete passes, and all of a sudden they're 0-5 against Boston, and that would have changed the makeup of the hockey game because he played well enough to win.
You're exactly right, and yet it is the word you don't want to use, and I understand that. But I don't understand why the coaching staff, and Rick Bowness has forgotten more hockey than I'll ever know, but it seems like it's so obvious here, but for whatever reason, and I don't know what that reason is, he seems to be, I don't want to say, kowtowing to the players, but there needs to be a complete personnel adjustment, not a small tweak, but a complete adjustment here. And if it means that you pardon the pun, Marty Bird, ruffle a few feathers, so be it.
Marty's not going to like that.
Well,
he's ruffling right now.
That's why he's hiding behind Jay right now. That's why.
But Drew, is that a matter of they just don't? I mean, do they not trust? It used to be. I mean, they used to have no problem putting Matthew Perreault out there in the first unit every once in a while, and they just to shake things.
He was
up.
great.
I mean, I think we've seen Nemestikov can protect pucks and dish pucks and retrieve pucks.
Yeah.
Mason Appleton is a little he's kind of like a Nemestikov light way in that regard. But why not start with 27 and 55 and keep 26 off the ice for the power play and just see what happens next?
Yes.
What's the most important?
We're also assuming that Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to come back and help in that regard.
And that would help a ton. Like I really like. I mean, is there a better time for PLD to come back than this afternoon? I mean, we'll have to wait and see in a few hours, but you're right, Drew. The power play needs changes.
What's the most important part of establishing your power play? The most important part is gaining zone entry. And if you can gain clean zone entry without having to chip it in and then win a puck retrieval, you're that much.
The guy who's chipping it in, the guy that we think should be on that power play is chipping it in and should be first in because he's going 1,000,000 miles an hour. If you have Mark Scheifele with strong support right beside him, you should be outmanning people. You should win that puck battle more often than not.
And then even if he doesn't chip it in, just his speed is so dangerous that maybe the opposition is playing a little bit on their heels. Maybe they're giving a little bit more room. He doesn't even have to necessarily chip it in. Maybe he can just gain the zone and then establish it without having to, regain possession. And
it all goes back. Sorry, Drew. I was going to say it all goes back to the Jets have.
Drew, I'm looking at Drew. He's feeling crummy right now. We have failed miserably.
No, but Drew's. It's funny though, Jay, because it's not like we've just been talking about the power play struggles this year. Like I could go back to show plans back in the TSN 1290 days. The coaching staff, in my opinion, has failed to get the most out of the talent on this team because with Kyle Connor, Nick Ehlers, I mean, we all know the names: Scheifele, Dubois, Morrissey. They're like Niederreiter now. There's way too much talent on this team for the power play to be struggling this much.
Yeah, so I think there's obviously a huge lack of confidence as well, and so maybe that's another reason why you change things up again. I mean, you just send them out there and set them up for what they probably consider as failure. I mean, I know they believe in themselves, they believe in their talent, but that collection of guys just it's not working anyway. And it's a game changer. We know that the power play can be such a game changer, particularly when you don't score and the other team just feeds off that.
Look at the Oilers, right, Jay? They go out there and you're expecting Draisaitl and McDavid to score a goal 15 seconds into the power play. They did that against the Jets, right? So obviously, I mean, not apples and apples. The Jets and the Oilers are different teams. The Jets don't have, 97 and 29. But I mean, I just think, I just get sick of talking about the power play because it just doesn't make any sense to me why they struggle so much with all of the skill they have out there. And yeah, Wheeler, I don't think deserves to be out there in the first power play unit anymore.
But that's the thing that I get text the most about is during the hockey game is just PP1 expletive. It's just like everybody I know. It drives everybody crazy.
Last word on this. I'm a big basketball fan. I'm a big college basketball guy. March Madness going on.
Go Kentucky.
Go Kentucky. Exactly. Big win for my boys last night. You can't have a player on the court or on the ice who is not a threat as a scorer. And Blake Wheeler, when he was a premier distributor in the NHL, that was a different story. He's not
5 years ago.
Right. 5 years ago. He's not that guy anymore. And he's not a scorer. Because he doesn't have a shot that strikes any fear into the opposition. So what does the opposition do? They can play off of his shot. They don't have to respect the shot. They can give him time and space because his shot isn't going to be good enough to just beat the goaltender. So now you're even adding a degree of difficulty to your power play that by just having him on the ice as a member of the first power play unit, because his passing isn't elite anymore. And his shot never was. So it's just another sort of, again, the deployment of the personnel. I think Rick Bowness has done a very good job or had done a very good job earlier this season with this team. But the continued deployment of the power play, it leaves me befuddled. And I don't know why it continues to be that way. Jay, I'll let you finish on last word on that comment.
No, I think you're right. I mean, you can come up with 4 other forwards. That would be a better option for you to start the power play. I think we all agree. Yep. And Nikolai Ehlers, despite his struggles, despite his defensive deficiencies they're really apparent right now, because again, I think it's a guy with no confidence, and maybe not 100% healthy. He should be on the first power play. It's just like
Absolutely.
Agreed. Jason Bell is the sports editor for the Winnipeg Free Press. Hammers on
the snow's going to be melting soon, Jay. A couple months from now, we'll be out at Granite or Black Bear.
You never invite me though, so
be careful what you wish for, Jason.
We're going to do it. I was out there a couple of weeks ago. The family's got a new cottage out there, so I'm pumped up about that. And I can't. No, it's not. It's Naomi's family. It's not my family. No. The Ginsburgs. Back in the day, my grandparents had a cottage up in Flin Flon because that's where my dad's from. But it's Naomi's family. But hopefully, we're going to be able to finally meet up, and maybe I'll get Scotty and Kenny and Sean Reynolds, the pride of Lac du Bonnet. So we'll all meet up and have a nice little round.
I noticed that he didn't.
There's a nice foursome right here. We could play right there. Yeah.
There you go. Something.
Jay, the only course I'm playing is KP.
I love KP.
Yeah, KP is the best pub. I've always said that. Best
Trestle hole.
Yeah.
Dave, you can drive the cart. You can
get the Mike's Hard Lemonade.
You can be the beer boy. You can drive us around and pick us up beer as we need.
I have to battle my wife for the TV though, because the Jet game is on, and so is Carrie Anderson's first game against Hasselberg. So.
Well, we can start a collection
Sweden, right,
see if you guys get your second TV.
We don't have split screen. Is there even a split screen anymore? Do they even have that on TVs anymore?
No, but they have these wild devices called phones and tablets that you can watch.
Too small though.
Well, no, get a bigger tablet.
Jay, let's be honest. I'll be watching Disney Plus with my kids.
Jay, thank you, buddy. We'll do it again.
Always fun, guys. Take care.
Take care. There he goes. Jason Bell, the Winnipeg Free Press. You can read all the post-game coverage. I believe Jeff Hamilton's on the road trip.
Hammer is on the road. Yep.
There you go.
Beautiful Nashville.
Post-game coverage from Nashville and St. Louis.
Shout out to Vandy, right, Drew?
No, not shout out to Vandy, but sure, why not? You can shout out Vandy all you want there, Ezzy. Let's when we come back, more on the Jets and the Predators, more on the Winnipeg Jets at the bottom of the hour. Adam Vingan, who covers the Predators.
He might have gone to Vandy. I think Vingan's not from Tennessee, though. Isn't he a New York guy?
Think so.
I don't know. Why don't you ask him when he comes on?
I might be confusing.
Josh Cooper's from New York.
Cooper is from New York.
Yes.
He used to cover the Predators for the Tennessean.
Yes.
But I don't think Vingan is from Tennessee. I'll have to look it up.
Nobody in the States is actually from where they're.
Nobody's actually from their home state
Sure.
or lives in their home state, right?
That's true. They move around a lot.
Drew would know. He grew up in Kentucky, so.
It's true. I did grow up in Kentucky.
Good old Bluegrass Mindell.
That's me. We'll come back with more Illegal Curve hockey after these commercial messages.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hi, Ez. A strange question for you. But why are you lying on the ground being crushed by a piano?
Well, Drew, I definitely tried to carry this baby grand piano down the stairs by myself, and somehow I failed miserably.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry. That was a silly question on my part. My apologies. Would you like me to call Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage to help you move the piano? They are the most experienced piano moving company in Winnipeg, after all.
Yes, please call Rollies and hurry. This piano is very, very heavy.
Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage offers stress-free residential moving services while taking great care of your personal belongings, including your piano. At Rolly's, no job is too big or too small. For more information, visit rollys.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
"We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?"
"I sure do."
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal. Starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Big thanks to Jason Bell for joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
And Marty Bird.
And Marty Bird, of course. You can't have Jason without
Is
Marty.
the Ozarks done? Is that series done? I forget. I watched it. I should know that.
That series is done. Yes.
Yeah, that was a great series. Great
it
finish.
Was a very
too.
good series. Yeah, good show.
Yeah.
Good show. I agree with that one. Lots of good shows coming up. That's a big month for TV. If you're a Succession fan,
I haven't watched Succession. What is that? HBO.
HBO. Good
yeah,
show.
I've never watched it, but I've heard good things.
Yeah, very good.
I want to watch. What's that? White Lotus. I want to watch
White
that.
Lotus,
as well.
also a very good show. Season 2 more than season 1.
Right.
Yellow Jackets. That's also coming up this month.
Never heard of it. What's that about?
It's about wasps, I'm assuming.
No, it's not. It's about a
group of people that wear yellow jackets and they just travel around.
Are they called patrols?
It's about a girls' high school soccer team that their plane crashes in the
that sounds uplifting.
Did
Drew.
Drew say earlier that he loves watching things that make him happy?
Yeah.
It's a good show. It's not a downer of a show. It's a well done show. It doesn't make me feel bad about myself. So I do.
That's our job. That's what we do. Drew.
That's right. You guys.
That's why Dave and I are here.
That's right. It was funny. I was watching Ted Lasso, the first episode of the last season last night, and I texted both of you guys this. A big sponsor of Ted Lasso, as you see on the show, is our friends at Betway, the official title sponsor of the Illegal Curve post-game show. So it's nice to see that Betway is putting their financial clout behind two juggernauts, Ted Lasso and, of course, Illegal Curve. So I had a good chuckle.
I haven't watched that show. You've been telling me, both of us, Dave and I, to watch that show for a while. I guess I don't have as much time as you do, Drew. Like, you have all this time to watch all this TV. Like, I'm working 24/7, baby.
I'm sure that's exactly what you're doing there, big boy. I mean, as you were,
I don't sleep. I'm like Rod Peeler. I don't sleep.
Why? How was wrestling on Wednesday? Did you bring your own keeper, or did they have to hand out?
No, it was so funny. I mean, we're all proudly Jewish, right? So it was Huss and I. Got to give a shout out to Kay Ballsy, who works for True North, but also we had Remus. We had the Winnipeg Sports Talk team, and of course our good friend Benji Rothman, who performs at Rumors. So you can catch Benji Rothman at Rumors. And he brought some kippahs. So we put some kippahs on during MJF's bar mitzvah, re-bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
It was a ton of fun. You know what? I got to say, like,
I saw it on Twitter. Dave will appreciate this, that before the re-bar mitzvah, which of course is just it was a wrestling segment.
Yeah,
he actually put on tefillin backstage. I don't know if you saw it. That came across your Twitter feed, Dave.
Well, it was also funny because he had 4 very good-looking women come out with him. The best part,
just reminiscent of all of our bar mitzvahs, undoubtedly.
Yeah, I didn't have a bar mitzvah, but
I was humoring.
I feel like the last 14 years has been my bar mitzvah on this show, right? And but no, I mean, I think that
Wouldn't it be 13?
Oh, it's been 14. Oh yeah, that's funny. You're right. Well, the funniest thing is when I was 13, my dad said, "Today you're a man." But yeah, it was pretty. It was pretty funny. It's just so much fun. It was a 4-hour show, but I got to say though, I mean, like, wrestling fans in Winnipeg, the history of wrestling in Winnipeg goes back like decades with Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega and Don Callis, who went to my alma mater, Kelvin High School.
I took a poli-sci class with him back in the day at U of M.
No, like he was teaching it?
No, he was a student in the class. We were in the same class.
Yeah, he's a character. He snubbed me at 7-Eleven, actually. I don't know if I've mentioned this on air, but I was with Ruben and Ariella at 7-Eleven on Corden here, very close to my house.
Yeah.
And Don Callis was getting something. I don't know what he was getting. And I could see that his phone, like his little earpiece was in, but I thought, I got to tell him I love Don Callis, love AEW. And I went up to him and said, just want to tell you. And then he looks behind and points that he was on the phone. I'm just glad that he didn't, give me a stone cold stunner or something like that.
Hang on. I got to say, that doesn't strike me as a snub. Dave?
Yeah, I would say it's not a snub. Like, I mean, he's on the phone. He's busy. He's busy.
I just thought, I'm ICSEG from Illegal Curve. You're Don Callis from AEW. I just thought, we should meet each other.
Yeah.
The funny part is I have no idea who that is.
I have no. Well, he was the natural. He was also.
Okay.
Was he Cyrus?
No, he was Cyrus.
I think he was called Cyrus in WWF.
No, I thought he was called the Jackal in WWF.
He was the Jackal, but also I think Cyrus.
I thought Cyrus in ECW maybe.
It's possible, but now he's just Don Callis. That's his real name, I think. But I think he lives close to us here in River Heights. But anyways, it was a lot of fun, Drew. It was just a great event. But let's get back to
Spency's saying it's the Jackal.
Thank you. Spency knows. There's no question about it. Anyways, I'm glad you had a good time. I thought it was very funny that you were all wearing kippahs during the re-bar mitzvah. I thought that was very clever.
It was Rabbi Alltime, by the way.
Who was doing
his son. Yeah.
Okay, so
someone said.
Hold on, Spency. I mean, Spency is right. He was the Jackal. He was the natural. Going back to the Joe Aiello independent Winnipeg wrestling days.
Yeah,
he was known as Cyrus the Virus.
Yeah, Spency also said Cyrus the Virus. And by the way, T. Conapoli believes it was kind of a snub. There was no call. but as Drew does the same thing. So I mean, like, come on.
It's true. I mean, every time Murad waves at me, I got an earpiece in, and
that was maybe the best thing ever. Murad calling you out for snubbing him in Crescentwood. I don't know if that's going to ever be topped.
Well, what can I tell you? It was unintentional. First and foremost is what matters most. Look, the question back to the Jets, because despite our frequent diversions, we are a hockey show allegedly. Let me ask you this: like, how do the Jets get Kyle Connor going? How do the Jets?
A goal.
Oh, thank you, Dave. I know I'm aware of what they
segment over.
Yeah, good talk. When we're not used to Kyle Connor going through these goal scoring slumps because it's been a couple of them this year. You remember how long
the beginning of the year was.
We talked about that. We talked about that on the postgame show.
Yeah,
right. So I mean, 2 goals in his last 14 games. The chances have been there.
Yeah,
it's not for a lack of opportunity necessarily. Is it a matter of just you just keep firing? He's just got to keep doing that.
Yeah, but like, sorry, Dave. I'll just quickly say, like, Connor has been. it's possible to play well and not get goals. Like we talked about it. Connor had, like, remember the power play chance, you know, I forget if it was the first period or second period, Dave, when Scheifele fed Connor in the middle, right in the slot, and he had a perfect, like it was vintage, you know, release from Connor, and Jeremy Swayman just stopped it, right? Like Swayman was in perfect, second period. There you go. So I mean, he's getting the grade A chances. Like it's not like he's getting all of his chances from the perimeter. I mean, we know that Connor's got the speed. He can drive a line. I think Scheifele, Connor, and Niederreiter, since, you know, it's only been a game since they were benched, but I think, you know, they played well against Boston. So I don't think it's like a question of usage. You know, he's going to be out there in the first power play. So I think he's going to be fine. It's almost bordering on absurd that he's not scoring more. It really is. Because he's getting, like, what is he, 5 or 6 shots, it seems like, every game, right, boys?
Yeah.
Maybe not so much against Carolina because he was benched, Dave, but I think Connor will be fine. Wouldn't be surprised if he scores a goal or two this afternoon.
Well, and as the only thing I was going to say is, I mean, think about it, Drew. You just said he had 2 goals in his last 14 games. What did he have in the first 14?
I think 2 goals. Like he didn't get anything 5-on-5 for the longest time.
Right. He had that empty netter and a power play goal, right? So, I mean, you've got Kyle Connor in a similar, and so what happened after that? Well, he went on a bit of a run. And then we thought, oh, Kyle Connor could score 40 somehow, even though he had started off so slowly. And he's getting the chances. And that's what you want to see, as he's right. Like, you want to see that he's getting those opportunities, and he is. You know, you're getting Kyle Connor getting stopped on a breakaway. It doesn't happen very much, but at least he's getting the breakaway chance. At least he's getting the chance. I mean, look, as he's right, that chance is the one that stands out. When he's set up like that, I mean, 9 times out of 10, maybe 9.5, he scores that goal. So it's just not going in for him. He's not getting the puck luck, but he's getting the chances. He's in the right spot. And I think primarily when you're not having success scoring, the one thing you can't be doing is a hindrance to your team defensively. And we know that at the best times, Kyle Connor isn't a defensive specialist, a defensive juggernaut. So what he has to do is he has to make sure he's not flying the zone the way he did in Carolina. He's got to make sure he's not taking penalties that are seeing him go in the box. I mean, he's just got to play a smarter brand of hockey. But I do think that he is, as he's right, you could very easily see Kyle Connor get 3 in the next 2 games this weekend and kind of propel this Jets team forward. Because if this Jets team is going to move forward, because look, you already said it, Drew, like Mark Scheifele has 6 goals in his last 12 games. Like, he can't do it all himself. It's a team game. Hockey is a lot different than basketball. Can't have one guy take it over every single game. You've got to have a supportive cast. And this supporting cast, Kyle Connor's got to score. Nikolai Ehlers has to score. Blake Wheeler wants to play the minutes, then Blake Wheeler has to score. Yeah. I mean, Blake Wheeler, I think, had the most power play time of any player in the entire game last against Boston. So, and again, that's not, I don't agree with it, but that's just the reality of the situation. So if you're not gonna put it just on Kyle Connor. You need Kyle Connor to score.
And I was going to say, Dave, remember the game against Florida with the, you know, it was, what was that, a 5-4 game? I mean, Connor had 3 assists. Overtime. Before that, he had 6. I just went back and checked. Honestly, it seemed like he had like 10, 12 shots against Boston. He had 6, but then you go to the game before against the Panthers, he didn't score, but against the Wild, he had 6 shots. So yes, shot volume is one part of it, but when you're talking about that Scheifele, Connor, and Nemesnikov line, I mean, the big key is, for me, like the Scheifele line is going to have to be good, but if Dubois isn't there, I don't know how much you can expect, because right now, I mean, Ehlers, you want him to score, but that line with Nemesnikov and Wheeler just, to me, isn't a very good line. Like, it just hasn't been working out. I'm not saying they've been terrible, but obviously, you know, Ehlers would be, you know, better suited to be playing with Pierre-Luc Dubois. They've had a lot of success over the years, right? But to me, that line, you hear a lot about straight lines and east to west. Like, that's what I would like to see out of this line. Like, quicker decisions. You have shooters. Connor can distribute the puck as well. I think you just want to have quicker decisions, like gain the zone, get a shot, get a rebound, right? Like, this is a line that feeds off of scoring off of the transition, but it's also a line that can create down low, right? Well, like, so you got to, that's what I would like to see. Let's see, like, shot, like a couple passes, shot, get the rebound, go to the net. Like, this is a line that is too good to be struggling and not scoring this many goals. Like, we know Niederreiter can put the puck in the net. We know Scheifele can put the puck in the net. We just documented Connor has had some streaks, but he's still, what does he have, 28 goals or something like that this year, right? So he'll get it going.
The only thing I was going to say, Drew, quickly is, you know, what did work at the beginning of the year? What line was the best Jets line by far? Pierre-Luc Dubois, Kyle Connor, Nikolai Ehlers.
And they never went back to it.
And it's like, again, like, I understand, like, it's funny because we said, remember what we talked about when they broke the lineup? Yeah. We said, well, that's fine because you want to see what you have in other configurations, but your muscle memory is there. You know that line has been dominant at times. You know that line has been successful. You know that line can score goals. Well, then why, in a situation right now where you are desperate for your team to have success, Are you not going back? It's not as if the coaching staff doesn't go, things that make you go, You know that you had success with Kyle Connor, Nikolai Ehlers, and Pierre-Luc Dubois. If Pierre-Luc Dubois is good to go, why are you not putting the three of them together and then reuniting? I don't care. You can have Scheifele, Niederreiter, and Wheeler if you need.
Right.
You know, like, who cares? Flip Wheeler and Ehlers, get Ehlers there. And again, that line for you scored a lot of goals. So to me, it doesn't make any sense. And Wheeler and Scheifele like playing together. And if you add a player like Niederreiter, I just think that complements them. So I actually don't understand these line configurations, and we're not the coach.
That's what I said a week ago, right, Dave? Like I said, Scheifele, Ehlers, Niederreiter should be the line, especially in the absence of Dubois. But boy, it goes back to our conversation with Jay Bell. Like, if there was a perfect game to come back into the lineup for Dubois, and again, I don't want to overhype this, but if he can't go today, maybe he goes tomorrow night against St. Louis. But
if he doesn't go today, I don't see him going tomorrow.
It's possible.
If he doesn't go today, I don't see him going tomorrow. I just don't know what would change. I mean, yes, it would be, I guess, another 24 hours of recovery, but I think it's either both or neither would be my guess.
Fair point. Yeah.
But you're right, Dave. I don't know why they haven't gone back to that line, because that line was very effective, and the play was in the opposition end when that line was together, and for whatever reason, once they broke them up, and I thought it was curious, we all thought it was curious when they broke them up, but we were willing to give Rick Bowness and the coaching staff the benefit of the doubt because things were going so well for the team at that point. But you haven't seen them back together since then. And for the life of me, I do not understand why, because it was a line that was dominating the opposition. It was doing everything. Remember the number of games where they were cycling the opponent to death. They were beating them up below the net. They were getting the puck, and they were having extended zone time over and over again. Yet for whatever reason, you haven't seen them back together. I don't know if it's stubbornness. I don't know. I don't know why. That would be a great question. Is the why behind it? Because to me, especially for a team that's struggling offensively and has for large stretches of this season, that was a line that gave you a fair bit of offense.
Well, and I just quickly, Kay Thor had a good point. He just said, well, the problem wasn't that line was producing, it was that the other lines weren't. And that, maybe you had to get a little bit of distribution amongst the others because Scheifele, Wheeler, and Perfetti weren't working. But I mean, like, Nino Niederreiter is a guy who Cole Perfetti has the potential. Nino Niederreiter is already there. And so, Nino Niederreiter, I think, again, with Scheifele and Wheeler, especially considering Scheifele still producing right now, I think he could be just what this line needs. Get someone in front of the net, get those greasy goals. And so, to me, that would change the look. And I'm just thinking you need these guys.
If PLD is not ready to go, or regardless, you're saying they'll get Ehlers and Connor as a pair back together.
Yeah, and I think that Pierre-Luc Dubois was kind of the catalyst. I think all three of those guys, and you need those. Two of those guys are guys that we've been talking about throughout the course of this broadcast that you need to be producing. So Blake Wheeler is a distributor. You're not saying you need 10, 15 goals from Blake Wheeler, but you are saying you need goals from Nikolai Ehlers. You are saying you need goals from Kyle Connor. And like I said, your best test, your best run of success to me was when you had those guys. And
the numbers back that up.
So here's the numbers. You want to talk about the numbers? So this is at 5-on-5. Pierre-Luc Dubois, Kyle Connor, and Nikolai Ehlers played 25 games together. They played just under 100 minutes together at 5-on-5. They had
a good sample size.
What's that?
Got some good sample size.
Yeah, you have a sample size there. It's not the world's largest sample size, but it's decent enough to know, 5-on-5 at 100 minutes. That's usually what, 5, 6, 7 games worth of time, give or take. Corsi for percentage, 64%. So they're possessing the puck tremendously. Goals for percentage of 64% and an expected goals for percentage of 63%. These are sizable numbers.
Right.
I mean, these aren't small.
And those are available to the Jets coaching staff. Like, it's not like they don't
this
have
is natural stat trick. It's not like
the Jets have their own advanced stats team, right? Like, so, I mean, they have even more, descriptive numbers, if you want to call it that, or, even more different types of statistics. So I think, it's incumbent upon the coaching staff and also the players in the top 6 to produce, right? Because Lowry, Appleton, and Barron, I think we would all agree they've elevated their game as of late, right? Like they're starting to put the puck in the net a little bit more. We know that those guys will go out there on the PK and everything like that, but the goal scoring has to come from the veterans on this team, right? Nino Niederreiter has done his job since arriving. Vladislav Nemestikov has done his job. And I do think that, Connor and Scheifele and Ehlers have started to play better. But if there's any if there was any other situation, to produce goals, then, this weekend, I mean, I don't see it existing. Like, this is crunch time. This is the definition of crunch time. Well, they got to win these games, period. I don't know how many times I'm going to say it today.
And, Ezzy, just to piggyback off of what you just said quickly, and it was the point already made, like Adam Lowry said, the time for Hall of Victories is over. Yeah. We've been talking about, like, we're not pillaring the Jets for not playing games well of late. They have been playing well. The last, I'd say 6-7 games since that Oilers game on the Saturday night that they won here, that kind of old school fire wagon hockey game, the Jets have been playing better hockey. So we're not saying the Jets haven't been playing better, but the problem is they're not winning enough games to secure themselves a playoff spot. So ultimately, it's not successful when you're not having success, even if you are doing things the right way. That's all well and good. And you obviously don't want to see the team break its structure, but they have to get to that next level, because right now it's not good enough. You need Connor Hellebuyck to play elite. Like, that's what he has to be. You can't have any quick goals today. Like, a quick goal is an absolute backbreaker, but you need the Jets to produce. And so to me, like I said, that seems to be an easy one, Drew, because we know they've had success playing together.
That's the part that I don't understand. Look, you're a team that's struggling for offense, and maybe you don't want to load up that top line because you were worried about, having a line with, I guess who would have been Wheeler, Dubois. No, I guess it would have been Wheeler, Scheifele, and Perfetti. You didn't like what that line was doing. Fine. So maybe you don't necessarily start the game with Dubois, Ehlers, and Connor together. But when you're struggling, and when you got the line blender out, and when you need a goal, especially late in the game, why isn't that your first line over the boards? Because the numbers bear it out about how successful it is. And I know that people in the analytics community, and I believe this as well, would say that every line is improved with Nikolai Ehlers on it. And I would agree with that, but doesn't that speak...
He's a play driver. He's absolutely a play driver.
Doesn't that speak to the need to give him more ice time?
Yes.
It's just like everything about this is sort of counterintuitive, that you have a guy whose performance leads to offense regardless of who he's playing with.
Or regardless of if it's even strength or power play, right? Like, he does the same thing.
5-on-5 right
there's
now,
no doubt that Ehlers is a key player for these next two games coming up, and his usage should reflect that.
That's right. And then when you need a goal, if you're at the point where you need a goal, it should be Dubois, Ehlers, and Connor. Those are the guys who should be the guys you're tapping on the back to say, go get me a goal. And if you're not tapping those guys on the back, I can't help but wonder if it's politics or some other reason why those aren't the guys you're relying on. When you need to absolutely positively get a goal, get the guys on the ice who are going to be your greatest play drivers and goal scorers. And I know you can only have 3 forwards on the ice at a time. I mean, obviously there's exceptions to that, but you might as well figure that out. Let's head to break. When we come back, Adam Vingan is going to join us for more on today's opponent, the Nashville Predators. You're watching the Illegal Curve Hockey.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel unexpectedly dropped off. He's muted.
Switch.
Yeah, I thought you hit the kill switch, so I was like, all right, we've got the Drew Mandel experience is no longer. It's the Dave Minuk show, but then I saw you quickly. I jumped on Drew because I was like, oh boy.
Yeah.
And then you were back.
What were you doing, Drew? Getting a snack?
No, I hit the wrong button on my mouse. I hit the kill switch on my mouse like usual. I still have to replace that mouse, but that's something I'll do before today's post-game show. But we're pleased to welcome to the program our good friend, Adam Vingan. Adam has covered the Nashville Predators for many years. You know his work from Sportsnet as well. Adam, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. How are things?
Good. How are you?
We're doing great.
We're good. It's good to see you, Adam. It's been way too long.
Yes, it has been a long time.
Yes, obviously, Adam, we brought you on to talk about today's huge matchup between the Winnipeg Jets and the Nashville Predators. Playoff implications, undoubtedly, as the Predators look to continue their unexpected push to potentially a playoff spot in the Western Conference. Knowing what you know of this team and knowing what you know of this franchise, having covered them for so many years, Are you surprised that after they waved the white flag, or the proverbial white flag, after they made so many trades at the deadline or leading up to it, that they're still fighting the way they are to be a playoff team in the Western Conference?
In the sense of how proud players are, no, I'm not surprised, because we as pundits and reporters can say this team should just pack it in, but nobody in a dressing room is going to feel that way. Even Matt Duchene, I saw, said something to that effect the other day. He said it could have been easy for them to just put their hands up, said, hey, it's not our year, play out the string, enjoy our summer. But that's not what they wanted to do. And when you consider the caliber of players that they've been missing over the past several games, of course, they traded Nino Niederreiter first to the Jets, then they traded Tanner Jeannot to the Lightning, Matthias Ekholm to the Oilers, Mikael Granlund to the Penguins. They've also been without Philip Forsberg for the past several games because of an injury, and Ryan Johansson suffered a season-ending injury, assuming the Predators don't make the playoffs and go on a run, of course. So they've been down several key players and have continued to play well. Now, of course, when you have a goaltender as good as UC Saros, as the Predators have shown over the past couple of years, you know, that changes everything. The Jets know that full well with Connor Hellebuck as well. But yeah, I am, you know, from afar, I have been shocked. I think a lot of fans here, especially with all the changes, we haven't even talked about the biggest one, the decision of David Poile to announce his retirement at the end of the league year and have Barry Trotz take over as the second GM in Predators history. All of those moves, those trades, plus the retirement of David Poile, really changed the outlook of the team from the fan base's perspective. Before all of this went down, I really do think that the fan base was bordering on apathetic, which is the worst thing you could possibly be as a fan base if you are a professional sports or even collegiate sports entity. Fans just felt like this team had no clear direction. They were trying to fool themselves into thinking they were a contender when they weren't. And to see all of these moves get made, the decision of David Poile to retire, which honestly, you know, I made a somewhat flippant remark in a little story I wrote about it in Sportsnet upon the decision of David Poile to retire, that it was the most universally praised move he's made in a while, was his decision to retire, just because, you know, since that epic second round playoff series between the Predators and the Jets in 2018, this team has not won a playoff series.
Same as it's been similar with the Jets, with the exception of the bubble year where they beat the Oilers.
Predators didn't even win a bubble series. They lost to Arizona in the qualifying round in 2020, 3-1. So when, you know, it just feels like, from a fan base perspective, it feels like the Predators are playing with house money. Like, if they make the playoffs, that's great. If they don't, that's sort of the plan, right? Is for them to take a step back. So I do wonder if the trade deadline released the expectations, the burden of expectations off of this dressing room. They know as well that, you know, for their general manager to make those decisions means that it's probably not in the cards for them this season. And maybe because they're not having that pressure, maybe it's led to this run they're on. I believe they're 8-3-1 in their past 12 games, and they've caught up to the Jets, who I know are scuffling right now. So yeah, I heard what Rick Bowness said yesterday. This is as close to a playoff game as you're going to get in the regular season. I know that, you know, coaches, players will say every game is a playoff game at this point, and sometimes it's just lip service. This really does feel like a legitimate playoff game, considering where the Predators are, the Jets are, and where they are in the standings.
You know, Adam, just going back to what you said a few minutes ago, that Barry Trotz is only the second GM in franchise history, is actually crazy if you think about it, considering the Preds came into the league in, what was it, 98 or 99, right? Like
97, 98?
Or 97, yeah. Like, it's just crazy.
One of those two.
Right. And obviously, like, there's a few Manitoba connections to that announcement, right? Because we had the Winnipeg Sports Talk guys offering free beer to Barry Trotz to come coach the Jets, right? And then obviously, you know, David Poile made that announcement literally the day after he traded Nino Niederreiter for the draft pick, right? Which I think you would agree the return was underwhelming for that. but you definitely cannot say the same thing about the return for Tanner Jeannot or Matthias Ekholm, because I think you would agree, and most hockey observers would agree that, he got a good haul for those guys, right? But I wanted to ask you about how quickly you think the Predators are going to be able to turn this around, right? Because we've talked about this, right? Like, the tired, rebuild and all this stuff. Like, I know that I'm not super familiar with the prospect pipeline, but I obviously like a guy like Philip Tomasino is a good player. Yaroslav Askarov, I mean, he's a really highly touted goaltending prospect. You've got Joaquin Kemmel. I think he was 17th overall in the 2022 draft. But like, how quickly can they turn this around? Like, is this a 2-year rebuild, do you think, or is this going to be some lean years for Preds fans?
Yeah, it's a good question, because before the deadline, if you would have told me that the Predators were going to be able to trade Matthias Ekholm and Mikael Granlund, I probably would have disagreed with you, just because players with such significant term on their deals don't normally get moved at the deadline. But the Predators did a really good job. You mentioned, the reaction to the Niederreiter trade, specifically in Nashville. A lot of fans were underwhelmed by the return. Look, Nino Niederreiter played his role. He was a top 6 forward for the Predators. He was productive. He was on a hot streak right before the trade, and to get a second round pick out of a guy you signed to a 2-year deal for $4 total million late in free agency. I mean, I don't think that's a terrible turn. But then they get a second round pick for getting out of Mikael Granlund's contract, which was highway robbery.
Sure.
And then they got 5 draft picks and multiple assets for Matthias Ekholm. So it turned out okay. And the Predators now have a lot of draft picks at their disposal over the next few years, especially this year, with the draft that they are hosting. I believe they have maybe 3 second-round picks and 3 third-round picks. I don't know the exact total, but
better than the Jets, Adam. They have 0.
They've got a lot of draft capital, which is good. And you mentioned some of the younger players who I think have played a part in this resurgence, so to speak, because I just feel like that youthful exuberance, these young players trying to play for jobs has really helped. You mentioned Philip Tomasino. Tommy Novak has been really good. I think I just counted. He has 18 points in his past 14 games, 9 goals, 9 assists. Luke Evangelista, who was a second-round pick a couple of years ago, has debuted and played a few games in the top 6. Igor Afanasyev, who was sent back down to the AHL, made his NHL debut a few games ago. He was also a second-round pick. You mentioned Askarov, who had a spot start earlier this season for the Predators in Montreal. He's playing really well in the AHL. So there are a lot of prospects, particularly at forward, who could be something for the Predators. But it will be interesting to see how long this takes, because I don't think this is a team that's going. I think this is a process that may take a couple of years before they're back to being contenders. Now, could they make the playoffs in that time? Sure, like they could make the playoffs this year for all I know. But are they going to win in the playoffs? Probably not. So, I mean, I do think, as I mentioned earlier, I think Predators fans can accept that. I think Predators fans were tired of just making the playoffs and getting their butts kicked every year, as they have been since losing to the Jets in 2018. I think Predators fans at this point can accept a couple of years without playoff success if it means getting back to where they were in 2016, 2017, 2018.
Adam Vingan is our guest. Adam has covered the Nashville Predators for years. You can also read his work at sportsnet.ca.
Well, Adam, if anybody follows the Milwaukee Admirals, we got a chance to watch them 17 times last year play against the Manitoba Moose, 12 in the regular season, and then 5 more times in the playoffs. But, you're talking about augmentation, and I looked on Cap Friendly, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, 3 third-round picks, 3 fourth-round picks, and 2 fifth-round picks for Nashville with the draft in Nashville. So they're going to have a lot of fun making some selections and augmenting that group. But, I want to talk, you talked about the fan reaction to David Poyle's retirement and that, and it's crazy to think of his longevity in a business that generally doesn't allow for longevity, although Jets fans know about that here with Kevin Cheveldayoff being the only GM. Mm-hmm. But what has been the reaction to Barry Trotz, the Dolphin Manitoba product that, of course, is beloved in Nashville and now going to become the second GM? What has been fan reaction to his acceptance of that role?
Yeah, I think, first of all, Predators fans love Barry Trotz. It's not hard to love Barry Trotz, regardless of who you are. If you've ever spent time with him. He's a wonderful man. Cares deeply about people, which I think will work well in a GM role. I know there was plenty of rumors circulating after he was let go by the Islanders that he would want to enter management. As you said, flirted with some coaching jobs, ultimately decided not to do it. The one thing, it's interesting because when you think about fresh blood in the front office, Barry Trotz is absolutely not fresh blood in the Predators front office in the sense that he was their first coach for 15 years. But I think the good thing is that Barry has spent the past near decade elsewhere, coaching in Washington, winning the Stanley Cup, coaching in New York, working with Lou Lamoriello. He's had those outside experiences, so to speak. So it feels more like a fresh voice than you would think when it's Barry Trotz coming back in. So, I think Predators fans are thrilled to have him back in the organization. And I think it sounds like he's thrilled as well. I think the fact that he's Barry Trotz is going to buy him some time. If there's some growing pains and learning how to be a general manager, I think the fact that he is, an icon in Nashville will let fans, maybe cut him some slack in the early going. Now, of course, it depends on how long he's here and how the team goes. That might change. David Poile could speak to that. David Poile, could do no wrong 5-6 years ago. Every move he seemed to make worked. He was the general manager of the year, I believe, in 2017. And since then, almost every move he seemed to make before these recent deadline has backfired. Every major move, whether it was trading for Ryan Hartman, trading for Kyle Turris, the list goes on. It just hasn't been, David had more misses than hits in the transaction department over the past few years. And I personally feel that he was in jeopardy of tarnishing his legacy locally if he held on for much longer. Not that people would hate David Poile, but I feel like people would remember him maybe less fondly if things weren't going well.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
With time, it would change. And look, the Predators, kudos to them. The skeptic in me wondered about the timing of the announcement. Like, why did they not wait until the end of the season to do this? The skeptic in me wondered if they do this, it sort of changes the narrative of the team that takes the heat off of David Poile, and it worked. I mean, it really did. So they were right from a PR perspective to do that. So I think I'll be interested to see what Barry Trotz does as a general manager. I think that the first major decision he's going to have to make is what he's going to do with his coach. Because most times new GMs who inherit old coaches, so to speak, like their own guys.
But isn't that easy, Adam? He just hires himself.
You would think that. I mean, the Predators fans, I'm sure, would love that too. John Hynes, to his credit, has gotten a lot out of this group at this particular moment in time. But the Predators are 3-11 in playoff games under John Hynes in terms of actual games. And as I mentioned, they have not won a playoff series with John Hynes as coach. So he's got one more year on his contract after this one. I think John is doing himself some favors with the way this team has been playing. Perhaps Barry Trotz holds on to him to at least start next season. But that will be an interesting choice because, look, if you're looking to hire a new coach and you need someone with that perspective, who better than Barry Trotz, one of the most successful coaches in the NHL?
Adam, shifting focus a little bit, I thought that the Carolina Hurricanes are clearly one of the best regular season teams in the NHL. And you wrote about this for Sportsnet.ca recently. I didn't think they had done enough at the trade deadline in any event to sort of cement themselves as one of the premier teams in the Eastern Conference. And then they go out and then they, to no fault of their own, they lose Svechnikov for the rest of the year with that terrible knee injury. What does this do from your perspective? I guess it's sort of a two-part question. Mm-hmm. Even with Svechnikov healthy, were the Hurricanes good enough to win the East? And now without him, what does this do to their chances?
Yeah, it's a huge blow just because of how important he is to their offense. And as you mentioned, even with a healthy Svechnikov, the Hurricanes, in terms of their expected goal percentage, are, last I checked, the best team in the league. But I feel like that's largely to do with how good they are defensively. Offensively, they are one of the weaker teams in the league in terms of actually finishing on their chances. And now you lose a player like Svechnikov who can do that. Now they still have a couple players who can score. I think of Sebastian Aho, I think of Marty Necas, but it's not just Svechnikov that they lost. They've also lost Max Pacioretty, who played 5 games for them. So those are 2 proven scorers down the drain, so to speak. And as you said, they the only move they made at the deadline of significance was acquiring Jesse Puljujarvi from the Oilers, but Puljujarvi sort of fits the mold of most Hurricanes players. Great play driver, not a good scorer.
Right. No finish.
So it's just not, they were in on Timo Meier. That would have helped tremendously. It also doesn't help that he's now playing for the team that's right behind them in the standings in the Metropolitan Division. I mean, they are good enough defensively, I think, to make a little noise. Like, they've got a great team defense. They've got a great defense in terms of its core. Jacob Slavin, Brett Pesce, Brent Burns, Brady Shea. They've got a great defense, and they've got good goaltending. So, can they win a series or 2? Yeah, I think so. But it definitely diminishes their chances of actually winning the Stanley Cup big time.
And 2 of those defensemen scored against the Jets on Tuesday night, Slavin and Shea. So Jets fans watching right now and listening on the podcast are very familiar with how good. And I thought that article, as all your articles are, was excellently written, because you mentioned that it's the Hurricanes defense that causes other teams. And I agree with Drew that they probably should have done more at the deadline. Like, Jesse Puljujarvi, okay, nice little acquisition. But now with Svechnikov out, now that's really when, adding an impact forward could have really helped out. But I still think the Hurricanes are a tough out in the playoffs. But just leaving the Hurricanes there for a second, because we know they're going to make the playoffs. But just wanted to switch to the Eastern Conference playoff race, right? Because obviously we're focused on, the Central Division, the Jets-Preds game this afternoon. But fascinated by that Eastern Conference playoff race, because I was holding out hope that the Sabres could make a run and get into that last wildcard spot. Obviously, they've won 2 of their last 10. I think they're 5 points back now. But you've got the Penguins and the Islanders holding on to those spots. And we know that they're not going to jump up and finish in 3rd in the Atlantic or the Metro. The best they're going to do is a wild card spot. But what's kind of your summation of what's going on there? Because the Panthers are 3 points back. We should mention the Sabres do still have a couple games in hand on the Islanders. But you've got the Panthers also with a couple games in hand. I mean, Ottawa's pretty much out of it, but I mean, is it completely wide open in your opinion? Do you think that the Panthers have been so inconsistent, but I guess, what do you think there? Because you got Washington still kind of kicking around, but I mean, we know that they were sellers at the deadline. So who do you think is going to end up getting those last 2 spots?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I do think the Panthers are playing their best hockey right now. Of course, they just scored 9 goals the other day. So, and Matthew Tkachuk has been, as advertised, he's been great all year. They've struggled in other areas, which is why they are where they are. But, Tkachuk has been as advertised. The same can't be said about Jonathan Huberdeau in Calgary. He's really struggled. I look at the Eastern Conference wild card right now. I think the Penguins are going to sneak in here, which they'll continue their longest active postseason streak in the league. I think it'll be like 16 or 17 years at this point. The Islanders have been chugging along, but they've been without Barzal for the last few weeks, and I don't love their team. I think the Panthers, who are 3 points back of the Islanders with 2 games in hand, are ultimately going to take that spot and knock the Islanders out of the playoffs. The Panthers, they've got they've got great scoring talent on their team, opposite of what we were just talking about with Carolina. They've got Tkachuk, Barkov, Verhaeghe, Bennett, Duclair. They've got, even players on their back end can score. Brandon Montour, Aaron Ekblad, who I think had 2 goals the other night. I like the Panthers. Now, you never know what you're going to get with Sergei Bobrovsky. He's the definition of a mystery box. He can be, a Vezina Trophy caliber player or like a sub-average, like replacement level goaltender. So if he plays well and this team scores, keeps scoring, I think the Panthers could sneak into the playoffs. Now, if they draw Boston, I don't think that's going to last very long, but I do think that they could. My prediction is that the Panthers bypass the Islanders and take that 8th spot.
Adam, the team that nobody seems to be talking about are the Minnesota Wild, and Jets fans are. It's reminiscent of a few years ago when they couldn't beat the Minnesota Wild, but these Minnesota Wild, a lot of teams can't beat them. They, alongside the Los Angeles Kings, are the two hottest teams in the Western Conference. But you wrote about them recently on Sportsnet.ca, and what are your impressions of Minnesota? Because it just seemed like Minnesota had started off well, then they hit that rough patch, but now they're back, and like I said, in the last 10 games, 7-0-3.
Yeah, if you go back even further, they're 11-0-3 in their past 14 games, which is the longest point streak in franchise history. And when Kirill Kaprizov went down with injury against the Jets, if I'm not mistaken, right. I feel like that was sort of like, well, that was fun. Sorry guys, better luck next year. But they're, they're 2-0-1 since then. I think they've scored 17 goals in those 3 games. They just beat the crap out of the Blues, and Marc-Andre Fleury tried to beat the crap out of Jordan Binnington, which I know I'm supposed to be impartial here, but I would love to see someone beat up Jordan Binnington.
It's unanimous. It's the one thing all hockey fans seem to be able to agree upon.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's doing out there. Like, he just seems like he's kind of being an idiot, to be honest with you.
He's been asking for it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He reminds me of like the old high school trope of like the puny kid that hangs out with the jocks who like gets all ramped up, and then when it's time to actually throw down, he hides behind the football players. Like, that's sort of what I feel like Jordan Binnington is like. So I think we all would have liked to see him, especially because it would have been Marc-Andre Fleury, who's like who's got a reputation for being an incredibly nice guy. He wanted to go, but the Wild, they've hung in there. And speaking of teams that can't finish, except for recently, of course, the Wild, are a team that also relies heavily on their defense, team defense. And Philip Gustafsson has been a great story for them. One of the better goaltenders in the league this year out of nowhere. They have pieces on the team that I think are really intriguing. Matt Boldy's been good this year. Matt Zuccarello is a proven scorer. Ryan Hartman, can score in bunches. For some reason, I was actually thinking about that game after the trade deadline in 2018.
We were talking about it earlier in the week also.
The Ryan Hartman 5-point game, right?
Yeah. That's a funny story about that. That's the only time in my beat writing career that I lost my story on deadline. So I had to rewrite the whole thing in like 15 minutes and then sprint down to the locker room at what was then MTS Center. And fortunately, Ryan Hartman in his first game, I'm sweating and out of breath. I'm like, can you answer some questions? And he was very nice to answer those questions. But yeah, he's he can score in bunches. So the Wild can take over first place in the Central today. I think the Stars are in Calgary, and depending on the outcome of that game, the Wild play the Bruins today at home. But the Wild can overtake the Stars for first place in the Central, which would be the first time they've been in first place of the season.
Adam Vingan has covered the Nashville Predators for years. He now works for Sportsnet.ca. Good friend of the program, going on for many years as well. Adam, who's your team? We were talking about this earlier. As he thought Vanderbilt for some reason.
Well, no, but because Adam, you're not originally from Tennessee, correct?
No, I am not. I moved here to cover the Predators. So I've been here for 8 years now.
But are you not from out east?
I grew up in Virginia, and
okay, there you go.
Then went to college and spent time in Washington, D.C. before I moved.
Okay. I knew that I had a pretty good idea that you weren't from Tennessee, and then we were like, Josh covered the Predators before you, and he was from New York. He lives in California. He sold out and went to California, obviously. No, but I knew that you weren't from Tennessee. So that's why the conversation, we weren't sure who your team is in March Madness, if you have a team.
I do have a team. I was born in Durham, North Carolina, so I am a diehard Duke fan.
Right on.
So the
Adam, this is your last performance. This is your last appearance
Isn't
on the show.
Kentucky's arch nemesis? Drew's wife is from Kentucky, so Drew
I'm a huge Wildcats fan. So
okay. Well, I mean, Duke and Kentucky have had plenty of battles over the years.
Yes.
But it's an interesting time for me today because Duke plays Tennessee in the second round of the tournament. And of course, although Tennessee is in Knoxville, which is about 3.5-4 hours away from Nashville, it is the State University of Tennessee. There are Tennessee fans everywhere in Tennessee, including a lot here in Nashville. So, I'm sure if Tennessee pulls it out today, I won't hear the end of it. Then again, if Duke wins, I'm going to be rubbing it in everybody's face.
Well, as a Kentucky fan, when Duke and Tennessee play each other, I just hope that the game goes on for all eternity and neither team ever wins. It just becomes purgatory is basically what I'm hoping for there. But
Yes.
Adam,
They call Drew Cocaine Bear in Kentucky, by the way.
that's true. But I do believe that Duke wins that running away tonight. So in any event, there you go.
Go
If I was
Duke.
betting with my head and not my heart, I would say Duke wins that running away. Adam, thank you for this. We always appreciate you joining us. Great
Cheers,
insight
Adam.
into the Predators and everything going on in the NHL world.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
There he goes, Adam Vingan joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Of course, March Madness going to get underway in about 10 minutes time, but it's a madness full weekend of Jets coverage. We have this Illegal Curve Hockey
What a
Show.
segue. Nobody segues like Drew, right, Dave?
On a segue.
Yeah.
There you go. Yes, you never
Anybody
seen
ride those anymore? I
broadcasting
feel
from
like-
a segue.
Yeah, I feel like those you don't see those around. I mean, obviously we live in Winterpeg, so you don't see a lot of segues, from November to March. But I'm just talking about like anywhere, like when you're
No,
down
a lot of
south,
the American cities, they have them now. You can just kind of rent them.
Yeah.
Put a little visa in, you get a
Yeah. I won't be getting on a Segway. I feel like that's just an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, I can just see that ending in an absolute disaster for both the Segway and for you.
I stick to Betway, Dave.
There you go. Yeah, so this is exactly. Avoid Segway, stick with Betway. Jets and Predators post-game 3:45 this afternoon. Tomorrow, post-game of the Jets and the Blues, 8:45. It's a 6 o'clock puck drop. Keep it locked to illegalcurve.com. We're going to have all the pre-game notes, post-game notes, the pre-game notes tomorrow, the post-game notes tomorrow. Illegalcurve.com will be hopping, and of course back here on the Illegal Curve YouTube channel. It will be a very busy weekend, a huge weekend for the Winnipeg Jets as they look to cement their playoff status. Yes, Dave, you're giving me the finger point.
No, I was just kind of agreeing with you, but I mean,
okay.
Drew, it's not just a Jets game.
No, there's a Moose game tonight too.
There's 2 Moose games this weekend. The Ice are taking on Prince Albert with a chance to make some history tonight.
Yep.
So I mean, there is it is a hockey-filled weekend with us here on Illegal Curve, but also the Jets playing, the Moose playing, the Ice playing. I don't know if the Ice are wearing their specialty bomber jerseys tonight or if
Those
that's
were
tomorrow.
sweet. I want to get one of those.
I was talking about it with Blaine in the chat, but
You see those, Drew? They were really
Yeah,
nice.
they were
Just a
nice.
big W. Loved it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're wearing them tonight or if they're going to wear them. Is it tomorrow? They're playing the third game, I think, against Prince Albert. But anyways, chance for history. They can go for their 54th win. And as the Maven, Richard Lapp told me in the press box the other night, if they win all 5 of their remaining games, they will tie Brandon for the best ever WHL record. As far as I know, that's what Richard said. Some folks were fact checking me on it. I just go by what the Maven
Oh
tells
no, the
me.
Maven knows. I mean, he's
literally written the book on the
yeah,
WHL.
He literally has written the book, and he's got like a photographic memory.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
I remember
pretty
once he
impressive.
was showing us pictures of Buff when he played with the Wheat Kings. Like he's a fun guy, and yeah, I would not dispute his factoids.
Yes. So anyway, so there's a lot of hockey to enjoy, and of course, watching the prospects. Well, that's what we're doing. Rutger McGroarty, he's going there. Michigan's in the championship game.
I love that
against-
clip that you posted, Dave. Him
he's
celebrating
cheering
into the empty net and everything.
in the empty net. And
Yeah.
so, but no, I mean, so you got him going up. I think Michigan's playing Minnesota tonight, and of course, Brad Lambert in Seattle, who the Winnipeg Ice are most likely going to face for WHL supremacy. He had a goal and assist. He's up to like 15 goals. I think 15 goals and 16 assists or something. Some remarkable number. I mean,
I'm sure the Winnipeg Ice aren't going to be happy to be when they play them because that's what everybody's kind of expecting, right? The Ice and Seattle to meet in the WHL final.
Yeah,
Portland's pretty good too.
Yeah, but they beat Portland 5-2 last night, and 15 goals, 19 assists, 34 points in 22 games for Brad Lambert. Had another snipe last night. So, you know what? That's exactly what the Jets want from their 2022 first round pick. He's flying high with Seattle and gaining all sorts of confidence.
There you go, Dave M, keeping you up to speed on everything going on with hockey at the AHL, NHL, WHL level. It's all on illegalcurve.com as well. Big thanks to Jason Bell. Big thanks to Marty Bird. Big thanks to Adam Vingan for joining us on the program this morning. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, leave us feedback on YouTube, leave us feedback on iTunes, leave us feedback here, there, and everywhere. We always like to hear what you have to say about these fine programs we put together for you. Big thanks to the sponsors of Illegal Curve who make the Saturday show, the post-game show, and the website a possibility. Our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club. Chris Red in town all weekend long. All shows sold out. Next week, Josh Wolf, all shows sold out. So very busy times coming up at Rumors. Our friends at Linden Market Dental Center, The Keg, Grid Park, Rolly's Transfer, always rescuing Ezzy from underneath a piano, Zappia Group Realty, Betway, the official sponsor of the Illegal Curve post-game show, and Ted Lasso. Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, and Seagram's support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve hockey. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in about just under 5 hours time for the Illegal Curve post-game show. Until then, we hope you have a great Saturday. For Dave Manouk, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Thanks for joining us. This has been the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow at Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.